Eli was the kind of man who liked quiet places. He worked as a maintenance engineer on Orbital Station 17A Big, floating metal city in space. People lived, traded, and passed through it every day. But Eli stayed in the lower levels, where no one went unless something was broken. He liked it down there. No noise, no people, just wires, pipes, and the soft hum of machines. But tonight, something was different. As he walked through an old tunnel with a flashlight in one hand and a toolbox in the other, he heard something strange. A sound, soft, broken, like a cry. He stopped. "Is someone there?" He called out. No answer. The sound came again, barely a whisper. Eli frowned. This part of the station was supposed to be empty. Storage tanks. Broken systems, no rooms. No people, but the sound. It wasn't a machine. It was alive. He followed the noise deeper into the dark. His flashlight flickered. The air smelled like old metal and something worse, burnt plastic and rust. He turned a corner and stopped there, in the corner of a cold, dirty maintenance room. Someone was hiding a figure, small, thin, naked. It was a girl, an alien girl. She was curled up on the floor, knees to chest, arms wrapped tight. Her skin was pale with soft patterns like glowing lines that had dimmed from cold and fear. Her hair was white and messy. Her body was shaking. She looked up, her eyes big, glowing, and full of fear, met his. She gasped and crawled back into the shadows. "Wait, don't be afraid," Eli said gently, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. She said nothing. She didn't speak his language, but her eyes told him enough. She was afraid. Alone and freezing, Eli slowly took off his work jacket and held it out. "Here, please," he said softly. She didn't move. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." She watched him with wide eyes, her arms hugging her body tightly. Then, slowly, carefully, she reached out and took the jacket. Her fingers were thin and shaky. She pulled it over herself clumsily, like she didn't know how to wear clothes. Eli knelt down but kept a safe distance. "What are you doing here?" He whispered. No answer. She was still staring at him. Watching every movement, Eli saw the bruises on her arms, old cuts on her legs. Her feet were dirty. She had been here for a long time, and no one had helped her. He looked around. The room had nothing, just broken panels and old tools. No bed, no food, no heat. "How long has she been here?" he whispered to himself. He reached into his toolbox and pulled out a protein bar. He unwrapped it slowly and held it out. Her eyes followed. It purred, her stomach growled, but she didn't take it. Eli broke the bar in half and placed one piece on the floor. Then he slid it gently toward her. She waited, watched. Then, slowly, she reached out and grabbed it. She ate like someone who didn't know when her next meal would come. Fast, careful, like it might be taken from her. Eli sat down on the floor. Still watching her, she looked no older than 15. But something about her didn't feel like a child. There was pain in her eyes. Deep pain. Like she had seen things no one should see. Eli sighed. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she naked, hidden and alone in a place where only broken things were left? He stood up. "I'll come back," he said. She flinched. "I'll bring food, water, clothes." She tilted her head, confused. He pointed at himself. "Eli." Then he pointed at her. She looked at him, confused again. He smiled. "You need a name. I'll call you Nova." She blinked, then looked down at the jacket wrapped around her small body. For the first time, Eli saw something in her eyes that wasn't fear. It was hope. Eli returned the next day quietly. He brought a bag with him. Inside it were some food packs, a small water bottle, an old blanket, and a simple shirt and pants he had taken from storage. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't ask permission. Something inside him had changed. He couldn't forget her eyes. The girl Nova. The way she looked at him. Like he was the first kind hand she had ever seen. He opened the old maintenance door carefully and stepped in. The room was still dark and cold. He clicked his flashlight on. She was still there. Nova sat against the wall, the jacket still wrapped around her small body. She didn't move at first, just watched him with alert eyes. He smiled gently. "Hey, it's me," he said, kneeling down slowly. He held up the bag and pulled out a food pack. He opened it and placed it on the floor, along with a folded blanket and the clothes. Nova looked at the items with curious, cautious eyes. "It's for you," he said softly. "Warm things, clean things, food." She crawled forward slowly, like a wild animal, unsure if it was safe. She reached for the food first and started to eat. This time, slower, more careful. Her fingers still shook, but her eyes didn't look as scared as yesterday. When she finished, Eli gave her the water. She drank fast, then stopped and coughed. He laughed gently, slowly. "You're okay." She looked up at him, then Dash very softly showed. Whispered, Eli." He froze. She had spoken. Not much, just one word. But it was his name. He smiled wide. "Yes, that's right. Eli. That's me." He pointed at her again. "Nova." She blinked, then touched her chest lightly. "Nova." He nodded. "Yes, Nova. That's you." For the first time, she smiled. It was small, soft, but real. Eli felt something inside his chest twist. She looked so fragile, so lost. And yet, that little smile was the most beautiful thing he had seen in years. He pointed at the clothes. "Try them. These are better than the jacket." Nova tilted her head, then picked up the shirt and pants. She looked confused. Then embarrassed, Eli realized his mistake. "All right, you need privacy." He turned around quickly and stepped outside the room. A few minutes later, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned. She stood there wearing the clothes. The shirt was too big, and the pants were tied with a piece of wire. But she looked warmer, more comfortable, more human. Eli reached into the bag and pulled out the blanket. "Here, it's not much, but it's soft." She took it carefully, then hugged it close to her chest. She sat back down against the wall and wrapped the blanket around herself, still watching him. "You're safe now," Eli said quietly. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Nova didn't answer, but her body relaxed. Just a little. Eli sat down too, a few feet away. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful after a while. She pointed to the ceiling. Up. Dark. Eli looked up. The ceiling had black streaks, burn marks from old damage. "Yeah, fire happened here years ago, before I came." She pointed to her arm, then the ceiling again. Eli's face went serious. "Did someone burn you, Nova?" Didn't answer, but she lowered her eyes. He clenched his fists. "Whoever hurt her." He wanted to make sure they never touched her again. She looked back up at him, then pointed at his chest. "Why?" Eli blinked. "Why? What?" She touched her chest, then pointed at the food, then at the blanket. "Why you help?" Eli thought for a moment. "No one helped you before, did they?" She shook her head slowly. He took a deep breath. "Because you needed someone," he said. "Because you deserve kindness. Even if no one else saw it, I did." Nova stared at him, then slowly crawled closer. She didn't speak again, but she gently rested her head against his arm. Eli didn't move. He just let her in that moment. No words were needed. She was still scared, still healing, but now she had someone. She wasn't naked, afraid, and alone anymore. Now she had warmth, a name, a blanket, and maybe even a friend. Eli knew it was only a matter of time before someone found out. Nova couldn't stay in that cold, broken tunnel forever. The cameras in that section hadn't worked for years, but someone might notice strange activity, footsteps, missing food, or the power drain. And if they found her, they'd take her away, or worse, send her back to whoever had treated her like trash. Eli couldn't let that happen, so he made a plan. Late at night, when most of the station was quiet, he led Nova through the hidden lower levels. She walked beside him silently, wearing the oversized clothes he'd given her, and clutching the blanket like it was a treasure. "Stay close," he whispered, holding a small flashlight. Nova nodded once. She didn't talk much, but her eyes always followed him. She trusted him now. That trust made Eli more protective. She was still healing. She still flinched at loud sounds, still looked over her shoulder like someone was chasing her. Eli took her to a long-forgotten storage bay near the waste recycling unit. It smelled bad, but no one ever came here. He had cleaned a corner, stacked some old crates to make walls, and laid down a mattress he found in the junk pile. It wasn't a home, but it was hidden, quiet and dry. "This is your new room," Eli said, smiling as he lit a small lamp. Nova stepped inside, looking around carefully. There were small things waiting for her: a pillow, some warm clothes, an old toy robot Eli found and fixed up, and even a cracked mirror so she could see herself. Nova walked to the mirror slowly. She looked at her reflection like she was seeing herself for the first time. Her skin was still pale, but less sickly now. Her silver-white hair had been cleaned the night before using warm water and gentle soap. The glowing marks on her arms were faint, like strange ancient symbols hiding just under her skin. She touched her cheek gently, then turned to Eli. "Pretty?" she asked in a soft, broken voice. Eli blinked. "What?" She pointed to the mirror again. "Pretty," Eli smiled, walking over and gently fixing her tangled hair. "You're beautiful, Nova," he said softly. "You always were." Nova looked down, face turning a faint shade of pink. Eli left some food on the small table he had built from scrap. "I'll bring more tomorrow, and maybe a small heater," he said. "But you have to stay hidden, okay? No noise, no walking around." Nova nodded, sitting on the mattress with the blanket in her lap. Her eyes followed him, calm but still watchful. As Eli turned to leave, she whispered, "Eli." He stopped. She hesitated, then pointed to her chest. "Nova, not cargo, okay?" Noah turned around fully, his face serious. "No, you're not cargo. Not anymore. Not ever again." She smiled softly. He gave her one last look, then closed the door quietly. The next day, things started to get dangerous. A station officer passed by Eli in the hallway and asked a strange question. "Hey, have you noticed anything weird in Section D? Some equipment's been missing. And someone said they heard voices down there." Eli shook his head. "Probably rats. That part of the station is falling apart." The officer shrugged. "Yeah, maybe. Still, it's creepy. You'd tell us if you saw anything, right?" Eli forced a smile. "Of course." But inside, his heart was racing. He went to work, checking systems and pretending everything was normal. But he kept thinking about Nova, about the danger, about how easy it would be for someone to take her again. That night, when he returned to the hidden room, she was waiting at the door. She opened it just enough to peek out, eyes wide. "Safe," she whispered. He nodded and slipped inside. "Yes. But people are asking questions. You need to be extra quiet." Nova nodded and backed up to sit on the mattress. Eli handed her a small wrapped snack and a mini heater. "This will help with the cold," he said, setting it near the wall. Nova touched it gently, then looked at him with big, grateful eyes. Stay, she asked. Eli looked at her. That one question said everything. It wasn't just about the room. It was about him. Could she stay with him? Could she trust this human to protect her, to care, to not leave her like all the others did? Eli knelt down beside her. You can stay, he said firmly, as long as it takes, until you're strong, until you're ready. Nova didn't speak. She just leaned forward and hugged him. It was awkward and small, but it meant everything. Eli closed his eyes and hugged her back gently, for the first time in a long time. She felt safe. Eli couldn't sleep that night, even though he was safe in his bunk. Warm under his blanket, his mind kept returning to Nova, to her glowing skin, to the strange symbols on her arms, to the moment she whispered, "Nova, not cargo." That sentence kept playing in his head. She wasn't cargo. She never was. She was something else, something more. The next day, Eli brought a datapad to her hidden room. He had installed an old translation app on it. He thought maybe she could start learning more words. "Look," he said, sitting down beside her. "This shows words. You tap here. It speaks. Try it." Nova stared at the screen like it was a piece of magic. She touched it carefully. The voice said, "Hello." Nova looked up at Eli. "Hello," she repeated. He smiled. "Good. You're learning fast." Nova played with it for a while, curious and quiet. She listened to the voice. Say other words. Food, blanket, friend. But when she tapped on the word slave, she froze. Her eyes went dark. Her lips trembled. Eli quickly took the datapad. Hey, it's okay. You're not that? Not anymore." Nova didn't cry, but she hugged her knees tightly and rocked back and forth for a moment. Then she whispered, "No chains." But still. Hurt Eli sat beside her and didn't say anything. What could he say? She had been used, taken, forgotten, left to die like garbage. But somehow, she was still here, still breathing, still trying. Eli couldn't imagine that kind of strength. That night, something strange happened. Eli was fixing a damaged panel near his room. Sparks flew as he connected to broken wires, and suddenly the lights in the hallway flickered out. Total darkness. Again, he sighed. Second time this week, then his cum buzzed. Warning: system failure in section 11. Power core unstable. To repair triggered. Eli blinked. But that wasn't where he was working. Section 11. That was where Nova's room was. He dropped his tools and ran when he reached the door. It was glowing. Soft blue light spilled from the cracks. He opened it quickly. Nova was on the floor. Eyes shut tight, her hands clutching her head. Her skin glowed with deep white line symbols and swirls that pulsed like electricity. The small heater beside her had exploded, its pieces melted and sparking. Eli rushed to her side. "Nova, what's happening?" She didn't answer. Her body trembled. The air around her felt heavy, like the room was full of energy. Then suddenly, the lights flicked back on. Not just in the room, but across the lower section of the station. Everything went silent. Nova gasped and opened her eyes. She looked scared. More than before, Eli gently touched her shoulder. "Nova, did you do that?" She shook her head slowly, then nodded, unsure. "Power hurt. Cold," she whispered. "Something broke." Eli sat down beside her, heart pounding. This wasn't just about her past anymore. Nova wasn't just a victim. She was something else, something powerful. The next day, Eli checked the system logs. Power spike. Section reset. Sensors overloaded. No explanation. No human could have done that, not without tools. And not without being noticed. Nova had somehow fixed the station's systems. by feeling them. That night, he brought her a small screen with star maps on it, just to see what she'd say. Nova stared at the stars like they were old friends. She touched one cluster and whispered, "Home." "Maybe?" Eli leaned forward. "You remember that place?" Nova shook her head. "Dream, stars speak. Sometimes. Her." Glowing marks pulsed again, faint but alive. Eli didn't understand it yet. But one thing was clear. She wasn't just some alien girl, lost in the dark. She was connected to something bigger. Maybe to something ancient. Maybe to something dangerous. That evening, as he prepared to leave, Nova gently tugged on his sleeve. "Eli," he turned. "Yeah." He turned. "Yeah." She hesitated, then asked softly, "If I break again, you stay?" Eli looked at her glowing eyes, her scared face, her fragile voice, and he nodded without thinking. "I'm not leaving you, Nova. No matter what." She smiled again, but this time, it wasn't just a soft smile. It was something deeper, something stronger. She wasn't just surviving now. She was hoping, and for someone who had once been thrown away like garbage. That hope was a miracle. Eli woke up to a loud knock on his door. 3 hard bangs, fast, angry. He sat up quickly, heart racing. Nobody ever knocked like that unless something was wrong. He opened the door carefully and found 2 security officers waiting outside. Both wore dark blue station uniforms and cold expressions. Engineer Eli Morgan. The taller one asked. Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah. What's going on?" "We received a report. Someone saw unauthorized movement in the restricted lower levels." The officer said, "That's your work area, isn't it?" Eli felt his throat tighten. "I fixed the power grid and cooling systems. Yeah." "What kind of movement? A young figure? Possibly an alien," the second officer said, narrowing his eyes. "We've had missing supplies too. Food, medical, blankets. Know anything about that?" Eli shook his head. "No, haven't seen anything unusual." The first officer stepped forward. "If you do, report it. If anyone's hiding down there, they're a threat. And hiding them makes you part of the problem." Eli gave a tight nod. "Understood." The officers left, but Eli didn't move. For a full minute, he had to act fast. He rushed to the hidden storage room when he opened the door. Nova was already standing, alert, eyes wide with fear. "Eli." "Danger?" she asked softly. He closed the door behind him and locked it. "They're looking for you now. Someone saw something. Maybe your light, maybe the explosion from the heater. I don't know." Nova looked down. "Sorry. No, it's not your fault," he said quickly. "But we have to move. They'll search here soon." She held the blanket close, looking smaller than ever. "Where?" "I know a place," he said, "but we have to go now. No sound, no lights." Nova nodded, even though her hands were shaking. She was terrified, but she trusted him. That trust kept her moving. Eli led her through back tunnels and side vents, places he had memorized over the years. He was an engineer. He knew this station better than most. He avoided cameras and busy corridors. Nova followed quietly, her bare feet silent on the cold metal floor. After nearly an hour, they reached a small, unused escape pod hangar. It hadn't been used in years, locked off and half buried under storage crates. But it had a maintenance hatch. Eli opened the hidden panel. They climbed inside. The space was cramped and dusty, but it was hidden. Safe at least for now. Nova sat down. On the floor, breathing hard, she looked up at him. "I'm sorry, you in trouble now." Eli sat beside her and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "I'd rather be in trouble than let them take you." She looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. "You protect me. Always. I'll do everything I can," Eli said, meeting her gaze. "But Nova, I think they know you're different. They won't stop now. And if they find you. She lowered her head. It'll hurt. He nodded. Or use you. Maybe worse. Nova placed her hand on her chest. Her glowing marks pulsed gently. I don't know what I am, she whispered. But I don't want to go back to cages. You won't, Eli said firmly. We're going to figure this out together. Hours passed in silence. Eli used a portable scanner to track patrols. Near their area, the search teams were getting closer. Too close, he couldn't hide her. Much longer. He needed help. He opened his comm and sent a coded message to someone he hadn't spoken to in months. Juno, I need you. Quiet job. Urgent. Need to move someone off station. No questions. You in. He stared at the screen, heart pounding. Then the reply came. If it's you, I'm in. Meet me Dock 9. 1 hour. Eli stood up quickly. Nova, we have one shot. They moved fast. Eli led Nova through forgotten tunnels and dead elevator shafts. She stayed close, trusting his every step. Even as alarms sounded in distant parts of the station, even as boots echoed above them, she kept moving. At last, they reached Dock 9. Juno was already there, an old smuggler. With cybernetic eyes and a scar across her cheek, she whistled low when she saw Nova. That her? She asked. Eli nodded. She's not cargo. She's not a slave. She's someone. She deserves a real life. Juno looked at Nova again, this time with softer eyes. Got it, she said. Get her in the cargo hold. No scanners will find her. Nova stepped forward, but hesitated. She looked back at Eli. Her lips trembled. You? Not coming? Eli froze. His voice broke. I can't. If I run, they'll chase both of us. But if I stay, they'll stop looking for you. Nova shook her head. No, you said. Stay with me. Eli stepped forward, kneeling down, and I meant it. I'll find you again. I swear it. Nova stared at him. Then slowly, she placed her forehead against his. One last moment. Then she climbed aboard. The hatch closed, and she was gone, as Eli stood there. Alone in the shadows, he whispered, Be safe, Nova, be free. Behind him, alarms grew louder. The chase wasn't over, but for her, it was just beginning. The ship shook as it moved through the black of space. Nova sat alone in a dark corner of the cargo hold. Her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Eli's jacket still clutched against her chest. The hum of the engines felt loud in her ears, but inside, everything was quiet. She had escaped the station, but not the memories, not the fear. She closed her eyes, whispered his name. Eli. The man who gave her a name. The man who gave her warmth. The man who stayed till he couldn't. Nova didn't know where she was going. The smuggler, Juno, hadn't spoken much. She had placed Nova in the hidden compartment and told her to stay quiet. Now all Nova had were shadows, silence, and hope. On the station, Eli sat in a cold metal chair. His hands were cuffed. His face was bruised. 2 officers stood in front of him, and the head of station security leaned on the table with cold eyes. You helped an alien fugitive, the officer growled. You hid her, fed her, lied to us. Eli didn't speak. He stared at the floor, jaw tight. The officer slammed a file on the table. Do you have any idea what she was? Some kind of illegal weapon? A living energy source? She could destroy systems without even touching them. Eli looked up. She was alone, he said calmly. She was afraid. And you would have treated her like a tool, not a person. The officer's eyes narrowed. You just threw your whole life away for her. Eli leaned forward. No, I gave it meaning. Meanwhile, Juno's ship reached a hidden outpost near a gas giant, a small floating station far from patrol routes. Inside, Juno opened the hatch and motioned for Nova to follow. "Safe here," she said shortly. "At least for now." Nova stepped out slowly. Her eyes scanned the small, quiet halls. Nothing fancy, just steel walls and flickering lights. But no guards. No cages. She was free. Juno led her to a small room with a bed, a sink, and a narrow window that showed the stars. "This is yours. You need food, clothes, rest," Juno said. Nova nodded, still unsure if this was real. As Juno turned to leave, Nova whispered, Eli, he's okay." Juno paused. "I don't know," she admitted. "He stayed behind. They probably caught him." Nova stepped forward. "I go back." Juno's eyes widened. "What?" "No, that's suicide. He saved you. Don't throw that away. But he is alone now." Juno sighed and sat down. "Look, kid. I've seen hundreds of people try to do the right thing. Most of them don't make it. But Eli, he didn't just save you. He made a choice. Now you get to choose." Nova looked out the small window at the stars. She didn't cry, but she didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, Nova sat on the bed with her eyes closed. Glowing symbols on her arms moved slowly like living light. Her mind reached out, further than the walls, beyond the outpost. Searching, and then she felt him far away. Still alive, weak, but breathing. Eli, she stood up suddenly. "I need to go back." Juno stared at her. "You're serious, aren't you?" Nova nodded. "I'm not just a girl. I'm not just a thing." Juno chuckled. "No, you're definitely not." Nova's eyes glowed brighter. "I'm more, and if I can find him, I can free him." Juno sighed. "You really are trouble." She pulled up a map and tapped her ship's controls. "Fine, one more flight, but after that, we're even." Nova smiled softly. "Thank you." Back on the station, Eli sat in a dark holding cell. No trial, no defense. Just silence. He had begun to wonder if he'd ever leave. He held on to the only thing he had left: her name. Nova. Was she safe? Was she warm? Did she still wear his jacket? He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. Then he heard it. The lights flickered, the air changed, something pulsed, like a soft hum. Rising fast, guards rushed down the hallway, shouting. Then came the sirens. "Warning, power breach in holding sector." Eli stood up. Something was coming. Or someone. The lights above his cell exploded in a shower of sparks, and in the smoke, she appeared. Nova, glowing, breathing heavily, eyes wide. Jacket still wrapped around her like armor. "Eli," she whispered. He stepped forward, stunned. "Nova, how?" She smiled gently. "You stayed for me. Now I came for you." And then she reached out her hand. The door to the cell melted open. Eli couldn't believe what he was seeing. Nova stood just outside the melted cell door, her small frame glowing like starlight. The one scared girl he had found in the shadows of the station now looked like something from another world. Calm, radiant and strong. She reached for his hand. "Come," she whispered. Without a word, Eli stepped forward and took it. Her hand was warm, real, alive. The alarm lights flashed red as sirens blared overhead. Security teams were already closing in. Boots pounded in the corridors. Orders shouted over radios. But Nova didn't run. She closed her eyes. The symbols on her arms lit up, brighter than ever. The walls around them groaned, and the lights above flickered. Suddenly, every door in the detention wing slammed shut. The guards' weapons shut off with a sharp zap. "I told you," Nova whispered. "I'm not cargo." Eli stared at her. "You're something more, aren't you?" She turned to him with a soft smile. "I don't know what I am yet, but I know what I'm not." They moved quickly through the station's lower tunnels, Eli limping slightly from his time in the cell, Nova guiding him with strange, quiet confidence. Doors opened without touch. Lights followed her steps. Even the station itself seemed to recognize her now. Juno's ship hovered in a hidden bay, already humming with power. The smuggler stood by the hatch, eyes wide as Nova and Eli approached. "You actually did it," she muttered. "I thought you were crazy." Nova walked up the ramp, still holding Eli's hand. "Maybe I am, but I couldn't leave him." Juno grinned. "Fair enough. Get inside, we've got heat on our tail." The hatch slammed shut just as the first wave of station guards arrived at the docking. Bay, too late, they were gone. Hours passed as they drifted into deep space. Far from the patrol lines, in the small cabin, Eli sat on a bench, rubbing his sore wrists. Nova stood beside him, silent. Her eyes focused on the stars beyond the window. Eli finally broke the silence. "I thought I'd never see you again." She looked down. "I thought I'd lose you." He chuckled quietly. "You found me, Nova, just like I found you." Nova walked to the window, placing her palm against the glass. The stars reflected in her eyes. "I don't remember my real home," she said softly. "But with you, I felt safe. I felt alive." Eli stood up and moved beside her. "Home isn't always a place," he said. "Sometimes it's a person." She turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Then you are my home, Eli." Juno entered the room with a raised eyebrow. "All right, lovebirds. We've got options. We can disappear into deep space. No one will find us out there." Eli nodded. "That's what we need." Nova tilted her head. "But others, like me, they still suffer." Eli turned to her, surprised. "You want to help them?" She hesitated. "I don't know how. But if I have power, it must be for something more than escape." Juno gave a low whistle. Well, looks like we've got ourselves a little rebellion spark." Eli smiled at Nova. "You're not just surviving anymore." Nova smiled back. "I'm living." The next day, they arrived at an old science vessel floating in deep space, abandoned after a war years ago. Juno said it was off all radar, forgotten. It would be their new home, their safe place. Eli helped set up power, lights, and clean water. Nova cleaned the dusty glass dome and planted small plants in old pots she found in the labs. For the first time in her life, she had sunlight, artificial but warm. She danced barefoot through the halls. Laughing, Eli watched her and felt something new inside him. Not just pride, not just joy, love, real, deep human love. One night, as they sat beneath the dome, watching the stars blink quietly, Nova leaned against him. "Will they come again?" she asked. "Maybe," Eli said honestly. "But if they do, we'll be ready. Together." She nodded, eyes glowing softly. "And if I forget again who I am, where I came from?" Eli looked into her eyes. "I'll remind you," he whispered. "You're Nova, you're brave, you're kind, you're not broken." She blinked, tears filling her eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," Eli said, pulling her close. "You saved me." In the darkness of space, aboard a quiet, forgotten ship, two souls, one human. One something more sat side by side. Both had been lost. Both had been hunted. Both had been broken. But now they were healing together. And as long as the stars shined, neither would ever be alone again.